Let's talk about cursor manipulation. So we have our terminal, and in our terminal we can manipulate the cursor position, and based on that we can do our works. So I have some functions noted here. The first one you see is called get yx, and the parameter is the window, then the row and the column. So row and column, they are basically variables, let's say integer variables. In window, in our normal sense, what we have seen, the window is basically our standard screen, which is std.scr. So that actually gives us the current cursor position. The current cursor position is basically stored in the row and column variable. Actually, if we think our terminal as a Cartesian 2D plane, then every single line is basically considered a row, and this is a column, this is a column, this is a column, basically a Cartesian 2D plane. If you don't know what it is, you should actually Google it. It's basically how we can determine a point in a 2D plane. So the first function, yeah, as I said, it gives us the cursor's current position. The second function here, move, basically it's pretty much self-explanatory. Here, this row and column, they could be literal values or they could be variables, integer variables, of course. And this function is basically responsible for moving a cursor in the terminal in the specific row and column mentioned in the argument list. And then we have another function, get max yx, and we'll talk about this when we get to that. So let's just demonstrate the first two functions. Get yx, it says it gives us the current cursor position. So let me first declare two variables, integer row and column. Okay, and now let me try to print out the current cursor position. So let me call the function get yx, and our window is, as I mentioned, standard screen, and row and col are those variables where we want to store the cursor position. So at this point, if I call add str, actually not add str, because we want to print this row and column, so we need print w, because we need a format specifier. So I'll say current cursor position %d, and %d is row and column. Let me just put a new line here. All right, and in order to see that output, we'll call refresh, and then we need to stop the screen from exiting in cursor session. We need to have the get ch, so let me just put them separately. All right, let's see how it works. So let's compile it. clang for 1, and in the compilation process we need to have the NCURSES library defined. No error there. Okay, so it says current cursor position 0 0. You see we have a text here, but why does it say it's 0 0? That's because first we are calling the function and then we are printing it. Now 0 0 is basically this top left position, so 0 row 0 column. Then this C is actually in our 0 0 position. U is at 0 row and first column. This R 0 row second column. This R 0 row third column. That's how it works. If we come down here, this is our 0 1 2 second row, if we consider starting from 0, and then we have first row, first column, second column, third column. That's how it works. So at this position I found that, yeah, I first called it, and at this position the cursor position was at 0 0, and then it printed this text. So now if I call them again, so let's actually try to do this. Let me have a separate function, print cursor position, and it should do nothing other than this, actually this. Okay, all right, all I'm doing is I'm just taking the cursor position and printing it. So we don't have row and column defined here. That's a problem. What is the problem? Yeah, row and column are not defined here. All right, then just call them, define them. We don't need to define them here. Okay, fine, I'll just call print cursor position. So when you first called this, we should see the same output, cursor position 0 0. If I call it again, what's gonna happen? Let's see. Compile it, run it. Okay, so see, the first time when we were calling it, it is in this position, cursor was at this position, and then it printed this out. After it printed out, it actually moved to the new line, because we have mentioned here move to the new line. So it came here, and then we again call the function, and that's when it actually printed the new position, which is actually 1 first row and 0th column at this position, and then it printed the entire line. If I call it again, this is where the cursor is, so it will print 2 0, right? Let's see. If I call print cursor position again, it should show us 2 0. Let's compile, run it. There it is, 2 0. Here. Okay, so we are familiarized with get cursor position. Now let's try to see how move works. It is pretty simple. So move is very simple. I don't need this function anymore. Let's just forget that. Okay. So let's say we want to move to a specific position in the terminal, and then we want to print something, we want to do something, we can do all the things. So let's say I want to move to 5th row, 5th column, and then I want to print something. This is 5th row, and then I refresh, and I have my get ch. That's it. Let's recompile, run it. Okay, we are at 5th row and 5th column. From the 5th column we are printing this, so exactly at this position it is 5th row, and oops, sorry, my bad. From where the text is printed, that's actually 5th row, and from 5th column the text is being printed, right? So okay, now when you actually saw that, it naturally came to my mind, how can I actually center a text in our window? So let's try to do that. And in order to do that, we need to be introduced with this function get max yx. Now what does this do? As I've mentioned here, terminal screen size. So basically this is our terminal window, and if we want to center something, actually I have a window open here, let me see, let me show you. So consider this is our terminal window, and this is my text, so it has some length. This is our text. Let's consider this is our text. So if I want to center this text in the terminal, first I need to know the width of the terminal, right? The entire width, we need to know that, and then we can divide it by 2 so that we know the middle position of the terminal. And let's say this is the middle position of the terminal window. And then from there, if we just try to print out the screen, it will not be in the middle position, right? Because the content has a specific length. So we have to take that length somewhere, so the cursor position has to be somewhere where the content sits in the middle of the window. So we're just talking about horizontal centering. We're not going to the vertical centering yet. Vertical centering is pretty easy. So horizontal centering is a little bit tricky. So what we are doing is here, as you see, first we are doing screen width divided by 2, which is, let's say, this position here. If we just try to print the screen from here, the content will be printed here. So we need to do one more thing. We need to go left. How much? Content width divided by 2. So somewhere around this area. So if this is the middle point of the screen width, you see, from that position, if we go left side or do a subtraction and go at the left side, how much? Content width or content length or string length divided by 2, then we can actually set our string in the middle of the screen, middle of the horizontal screen, not the vertical screen. So let's try to do that. Actually, let's remove these. First we need to know the width and height, actually the width. So integer row, right? Integer row, because this is our row, right? And we need to know, well, this is the row, I'm sorry, it has to be the column. We need to know how many columns are there, right? How many columns are there in the window. So we need to know the column. Okay, so let's say row and column both in there. And if we call get max yx, and then we need to provide the window, which is our standard screen, and then row, and then the column. So at this position, row and column, these integer variables have the total window row, how many rows are there in the window, how many columns are there in the window, and our task is to work with the column. So the horizontal, so yeah, so we need to first figure out exactly at which position that content should be start printing, right? In other words, where we should place our cursor first by the move function, and then we print out the entire content. So in order to know that, let's say integer cursor position is basically column divided by 2, right, minus content length divided by 2, but we don't have a content, so let's just define a content here. Character text, let's say hello world. Okay, and I have my string.header file mentioned here, so I can pretty easily figure out the length of that string. So I can say integer length is this strlen is the function. Yeah, that's the function. And if we provide the array of the characters there, we know the length of the content. So we'll subtract length divided by 2. Now this is our column position, and our row position for now, so 0 and cursor position. So what we're doing is we are not going to the vertical centering yet. We are at the horizontal centering. So we are at the very first row, the 0th row, right? Actually, it will be a little bit up here. Yeah, we are at the 0th row, and we are figuring out how many columns are there, the middle point of the column, and subtracting with the length of the content by 2, so the half of the content length. Okay, and then we are moving the cursor at that position, which is this position here, and from that position we'll start printing the content. So at that position we'll add str text, or we can also use the printw function here with the format specifier %s. Basically, actually, let me show that here. Printw %s text, that works as well. So at this position, oh, and also we need to have the refresh function, and our get ch is there as well. Okay, so we did our calculation, we moved the cursor at that position, and then we are printing the text. Let's see if that is centered horizontally or not. Right, recompile, execute. That's great. Okay, now yeah, let me try to get it a little bit bigger. Okay, let's try to do the the vertical centering now. And what is the vertical centering? The vertical centering is pretty easy. See, this is how many, if we go through here, this is our vertical side, right? Vertical centering. So we have to take it down somewhere in the middle. And how do we do that? We know the horizontal position of the cursor, but what is the vertical position? The vertical position is exactly the total number of rows we have here. This is a row, this is a row, this is a row, this is a row. How many rows are there divided by 2, right? That's the vertical centering position. So if we just say when we move the cursor, we know how many rows are there, and we just divided, oopsie, my bad, just divided by 2, then that's our vertical centering, right? If I save it, recompile it, run it, there you go. Okay, let's try to resize my terminal, run it again, there you are, it's in the center. Now actually the row by 2 is a little bit, so we basically need to do a little bit like this. Row by 2, just to -1, basically go up and a row. Yeah, that looks better, I guess. Let me resize it, run it again, there you go. So that's how our we can actually center a text in a specific window. And for in order to add some spice in it, let's just add a background there. Which background do we want? Let's add tilde. Instead of a color pair, let's just add a tilde just for fun. So we compile. We have tilde all over the screen, and then in the middle, hello world. Great. That's it.